So deciding whether to be a sole trader or a limited company is a decision one needs to make quite near the beginning of one's coaching journey. Most people will start off as a sole trader. It's the much more straightforward way to do things. Limited company is slightly more complicated, but there are some advantages to being a limited company. This is a very short video. I'm just going to talk through the main issues about how you make the decision over whether to be a sole trader or to become a limited company. So it's an important decision, and you need to think things through very carefully. Being a sole trader is much simpler. There is less paperwork, there's less cost, and in many cases it's a great way to run a coaching business. So the plus sides are the simplicity of it all. You don't need a separate bank account even. You certainly don't need to use an accountant. The only commitment each year is to complete your personal tax return. You need to keep records for that, obviously, just in case there's any queries, but there's no great thing to worry about. The disadvantage of being a sole trader is that you're personally liable for any costs. So should something awful happen and you suddenly have a load of debts, then the people you owe money to can come after you personally for those debts. That means if there isn't enough money coming in from the coaching to cover those costs, then they can come after your property, your house, your car, those kind of things. So that's a slight risk. Obviously, you should have insurance that would help you out in that case. So that's the big disadvantage of being a sole trader. So there are a few reasons why you might want to be a limited company. One of them obviously is that risk one. As a limited company, your liability is limited to the shares in the company, so that risk isn't there in the same way. Again, you should have insurance that mitigates the risk even more anyway. The other reasons you might want to have a limited company are if you do a lot of work with companies. Companies often would prefer to come to an agreement with a limited company rather than with an individual. It helps them in terms of covering them against any employment issues, any tax issues. So often a company would prefer to come to an agreement with a limited company rather than a sole trader. The other time when you may want to be a limited company is if you're hoping to get work as an associate. A lot of the organisations that take on associates, again, would prefer to have an agreement with a limited company rather than a sole trader for exactly the same reason, that they don't want any employment issues or tax issues that might come from you working as a sole trader. So in some ways it's about image and how you want to come across to your potential clients, and as with many things, it depends who you want to work with. So they're the main things. The disadvantage of being a limited company is, first of all, as you've probably gathered, it's more expensive to run a limited company. You almost certainly need an accountancy firm to do your annual accounts. You may well have them helping you with other little tax things along the way. You may want them to be your registered office because that's publicly shared data, and you may not want to have your private address on your website. So often people use their accountants as their registered office for a small fee, which means that rather than having to put your own address on your website and your emails, you can use the registered company address, which is your accountant's. So that's another additional cost. And you need to do an annual return, which it's not a lot of money, but it's about £35, which you need to do each year at the company's house to register the company. So overall, you're probably talking about nearly £1,000 a year to run a limited company in terms of accountancy fees and these other little charges, compared with very little at all to be a sole trader. So it's more expensive, but it gives you some protection, and in some cases you have no choice because of who you want to work with. So that's a very quick summary of the things you need to think about when you're choosing between sole trader and limited company. As with all these kind of things, it's worth getting some professional advice, either an accountant or a tax specialist, to help you decide what's best in your particular position, rather than going straight into it. We talk about this a lot more on the Coach Matters. So if you want to find out more, go to coachmatters.co.uk and explore what we have on offer. Thanks a lot.